Alright everybody, we're back with another TinkerCad video. This video we're going to explore the design workspace. So from my dashboard, we'll go ahead and click Create New Design. Just like any other project, the first thing we're going to do is name it. This one will be Mr. Lindstrom Example. Always name your projects. That way you know what it was, and that way if you want me to 3D print it, I can find it easily. So this is your design workspace. We'll go over some of the features here, and in the next video we'll go through and start doing some design stuff. Up here in the top left corner, you've got your home button. It's just like any web page home button. Miss Moberg goes over this in one of her classes. This will take you back to your dashboard. We've already covered, here's where you name your project. You got a copy button. You can also use Control-C to copy. You've got a paste button, Control-V to paste. So Control-C copy, Control-V paste, just like any other application. You have a duplicate and repeat button. We'll get into that in one of the lessons later on. And you've got a delete button. Delete button's going to do just what it says. Click on it, whatever's selected will be deleted. You have an undo button, Control-Z, and a redo button, Control-Y. So you can use the keyboard shortcuts, or you can use these buttons to copy, paste, trash, delete, undo, and redo. Over here on this side's a show all. We'll get into that in a later lesson. You have a group and ungroup. You have a align button and a mirror button. So we'll get into all of these in one of the lessons. Import and export. We won't use the import button too much because we won't be importing any 3D files that we've pre-made too often. But export we will be using. Export's what we use to convert it to an STL file that I can 3D print for us. Work plane is something we'll discuss in one of the lessons. Work plane adds an offset work plane, so you don't have to keep moving objects up and down. Ruler is a handy tool, but it can be a little bit confusing until you get used to it. Over here you have your options for shapes. We're mostly going to work in the basic shape category, but it does give you some other options here, characters, connectors, numbers. You're free to explore these on your own. This is our work shape area. This is all our basic shapes that we're going to use. TinkerCad's kind of neat because everything you build in TinkerCad you build up from basic shapes. You add or take away to basic shapes to create your design. Over here in the left corner is your camera view angle. You can use this to rotate around. Let me drag a shape in here quick. So you can use this to rotate around and get different views on your project. You can see it from below, from top. You can also click on different blue highlighted spaces on this, and it'll move the camera to that view. Another option for changing this view angle is if you hold down the right mouse button and drag around, the camera view will follow you. When in doubt, click the home button. It'll take you back to the default top front view. Fit view to selected shapes. It'll zoom in or out to the shapes you have selected. And you can use zoom in and zoom out. You can use the plus and minus buttons on your keyboard to do those. You can also use the scroll wheel. If you have a scroll wheel on your mouse, it'll zoom in and out. Down here is flat view. We won't get into flat view too much. It's not something that's terribly useful for us. We want to stay in perspective view. Another feature that there isn't a button for is the click and drag. If I want to move left or right, up or down without changing my camera view, I'll hold down the scroll wheel on my mouse, or the middle button if you have a middle button. And once I hold it down, I can drag around and move my view that way. And that is the basics of the design workspace. In one of the lessons, we will get down here to the snap grid and edit grid. These let you change the measurements. You can change to inches. I recommend staying in millimeters for everything we're going to do. It's a lot easier using the metric system. And then snap grids, kind of interesting to use. You can change the measurements you snap to. Generally, when you snap something in a 3D program, it means that you're moving it a certain amount at a time. So if you watch my number next to it, it's going 26, 31, 36, 41. So every time I move that object, it's moving 5 millimeters at a time. If I want to move it 1 millimeter at a time, I can go back to Snap Grid, select 1 millimeter. Then I can move it in 1 millimeter increments. And you can get down as fine as 0.1 millimeter. About the smallest we're ever going to use is 0.5 millimeters, and we'll see that in one of the tutorials coming up. But for the most part, you're just going to leave that at 1 millimeter. And that is the design workspace. In the next video, we'll probably shift over and start doing some of the tutorials. So we'll look forward to seeing you at that video.